What's going on, everyone? I'm NotBae, bringing you a little bit of Smash discussion. It has been a hot minute since I've done one of these, and I wanted to catch up with you guys because I have a lot to talk about. I have missed all of the rumors and discussion behind the Nintendo Switch 2 and Smash 6. I have definitely kept tabs on what people were saying and what people want to change, but I noticed a pattern. No one was talking about Mewtwo. Our failed science experiment has been left by the wayside, which I guess kind of makes sense given his status in Ultimate, but that's not the point. Since the Switch 2 is coming out either very soon or is released by the time you're watching this, I wanted to take the time to list my top 5 changes I want to see from Mewtwo. Now, before I get into my list, I do want to preface these are the changes I believe would make Mewtwo more fun to play while keeping him true to his Smash identity as a glass cannon. While all of these changes would make him stronger, that's not the point of this video. A top tier is meaningless if the character does not have any interesting lines of play or lacks any personality and creativity. Mr. Game & Watch is an incredibly strong character, but is loathed by basically the entire community. Conversely, Bowser took a considerable drop in tiers compared to Smash 4, but his Ultimate incarnation is widely considered to be the most on point in terms of character design, feel, and play patterns. I want my Mewtwo to feel like Mewtwo from the Pokemon franchise, and while he mostly feels like it in Ultimate, there's always room for improvement, so let's get into it. Starting with an honorable mention, increasing Mewtwo's weight. I really like Mewtwo's style as a big body glass cannon, but I do think he's a bit too light since his movement was hit pretty hard during the transition from Smash 4 to Ultimate. It makes him feel like a paper cannon more often than I would like. I think something small like a 3 to 5 point increase makes sense, but I don't want him to be super crazy heavy. I don't really love the argument of making Mewtwo heavy just because he's canonically 270 pounds. I get that, yeah, he should be heavier than Pikachu, but anyone who has played the Pokemon games knows that weight does not matter in gameplay unless you're using something like Heavy Slam or Low Kick. Weight in Smash is largely associated with a character's defensive capabilities, and when you look at Mewtwo's base stats in Pokemon, he's clearly more geared as an offensive threat with high speed and low defense relative to other legendary Pokemon, coincidentally lining up with his high damage and movement speed in Smash. While it would be a nice addition, I don't think it's necessary, nor do I think it's that interesting of a change, so we keep it as an honorable mention. Onto my actual list at number 5, double jump canceled aerials. Mewtwo does already have the ability to cancel his double jump with his specials, but adding that mechanic to his aerials would open up a ton of creative pressure on shield, combos, and even kill confirms. We see bits and pieces of this with Kazuya's combo game, and to some extent Lucas's Zeratrains and Peach's flow cancels. What's funny is that Mewtwo previously had this. Back in Melee, Mewtwo could cancel all vertical momentum from his second jump with an aerial or special. While Melee Mewtwo wasn't strong enough to make full use of this mechanic, I think bringing it back could add a ton of creativity in Mewtwo's gameplay while dramatically increasing his power level. The reason it's not higher on my list is because I think it's too powerful. We are effectively adding float cancel pressure to Mewtwo's game, and while I think that is very on theme, the rest of his kit needs to be toned down to balance around this mechanic. And given how hands-off Nintendo has been with a lot of the older characters, I don't see this change as one they're even considering. This would be awesome, but I'm not holding my breath on it. Moving on to something I think is realistic and reasonable. Number 4, better air mobility. Now, I don't mean better air speed. Stat junkies will know that Mewtwo actually has the 3rd highest air speed in the game, and this speed is awesome for situations where Mewtwo needs to go in one direction, such as chasing, combos, and recovering. The trade-off is that Mewtwo ranks in the bottom half of air acceleration. This can make Mewtwo feel pretty sluggish in some scenarios, like weaving in and out of an opponent's range, trying to land on stage, or even microspacing on an opponent's shield. And while I did say weight is not a huge factor in the Pokemon games, speed definitely is. Some would argue the most important stat in the game. And with Mewtwo's base 130 speed, I think it makes sense for him to be a bit more mobile. Increasing his air acceleration would be awesome. Another thing they could potentially do is giving a slight bump to his fast fall speed. Again, Mewtwo is very middle of the pack in this regard, but I do think an increase could help with the aforementioned mobility issues and even give the illusion that he weighs a lot since he drops like a brick when he wants to. I'm not too picky with either of these options. I think the air acceleration buff would greatly help his disadvantage state, while the fast fall speed would be a buff across the board. Not necessarily a flashy buff, but I think both would be a welcome change to Mewtwo's overall gameplay. However, let's get spicy with number 3, acting out of teleport. I am convinced if Mewtwo was released today as DLC, he would already have this mechanic. And it's very straightforward change. Rather than going into free fall after a NotBae, allow Mewtwo to do whatever he wants. While this wouldn't be a dramatic improvement to his recovery, it would be instrumental for his neutral and advantage states. Being able to, say, teleport into an aerial, air dodge, or shadow ball for movement mix-ups would be awesome, while still being on theme with Mewtwo's design. In many ways, this would somewhat mimic Mewtwo's air dodge from Smash 4, albeit a much more committal version of it. And the best part is, we've already seen this implemented into Mewtwo. In Project N, the developers implemented this very mechanic, and the clips speak for themselves. I'm not super invested in PM's meta, but from the bits and pieces I've read, Mewtwo seems to be a very meta-relevant character, and part of that reason is because of the crazy control he has in the air. That being said, I don't see this as the most helpful change for Mewtwo. While giving his recovery option more flexibility is good, this change would mainly buff his neutral and advantage state. It doesn't help Mewtwo land on stage or escape any combos any quicker than what he already had. From a flavor and lore perspective, this change would be number 1 for me. Taking everything else I want out of Smash 6 Mewtwo, it's staying at number 3. Getting to the elephant in the room for Ultimate Mewtwo, number 2, intangibility on tail attacks. For any non-Mewtwo player, the first thing you think of when you hear Mewtwo is probably his tail, and this isn't unwarranted. There are countless clips and tournament stocks of Mewtwo players getting punished for simply having a tail. If you followed me over the years, you'll know that I've always been okay with the tail hurtbox. I've never lost a tournament set or game because of the tail. But even if I did, I still maintain that having Mewtwo's tail act like a sword is kind of silly in concept. That being said, I completely agree that tail attacks getting completely beaten out by disjoints feels horrible as a Mewtwo player. You made the correct decision on a move option, only you didn't because a significant portion of your move kit involves extending your hurtbox out, ready to get hit. Because of this, I'm fine with keeping the tail hurtbox, but having Mewtwo's tail become intangible during tail attacks. Mewtwo players can still get punished for incorrect spacing and positioning on stage, but when they do choose to down tilt or back air, they can rest assured that their attack will come out properly. We've also seen similar intangibility in other characters. Ridley gets wing intangibility on his up tilt, Charizard gets head intangibility on his up air, Kirby gets leg intangibility on a handful of his moves, and any character that uses their head on up smash probably has intangibility. And Kazuya can literally turn completely blue as a movement option. Is this more complicated than just having a smaller tail hurtbox? Absolutely. The devs could literally just chop Mewtwo's hurtbox in half and call it a day. But I'm not here for easy. I want a well-designed Mewtwo, and I think tail attack intangibility is the best of both worlds. I know this will likely be my most contentious point, so if you disagree with me, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but we're leaving it at number 2. And moving on to number 1, more accessible teleport cancels. You know what's amazing? Smash 4 teleport cancels. You know what sucks? Ultimate teleport cancels. I have talked trash about Smash 4 Mewtwo for the longest time, as I think he was a pretty poorly designed character. But one thing that was awesome to watch, meta relevant and faithful to the source material, was his ability to ledge cancel his teleport. Mechanics are the same as Ultimates, but Smash 4 Mewtwo slid on the ground a lot more, allowing him to slip off the ledge after a teleport. It was the perfect balance of difficult but not impossible tech that significantly shored up Mewtwo's inherent weaknesses of landing. Having this in Ultimate would have been crucial to a manageable disadvantage state, giving Mewtwo a nice mix-up, especially when his double jump isn't any reliable option. And this is just discussing Mewtwo's defensive options. Easier teleport cancels would also offer a lot of offensive utility, whether it be easier combo extensions, edge guards, or even niche neutral mind games. Options are honestly to the player's imagination, which is what I truly want out of a Smash character. The ability to express themselves however the player wants to play. The perfect balance of power, style, and flavor, teleport cancels are my number 1 change I want for Smash 6. You can keep literally all of the bad things about Ultimate Mewtwo, give me easier teleport cancels and I'll be a happy camper. Now, I am only one person in the community, so I wanted to hear from all of you. I made a post on my YouTube and Discord to gather your thoughts and opinions about what should change for Mewtwo in Smash 6. So we're going to look at your requested changes to react and comment on. One comment I thought was interesting was min-maxing Mewtwo even more. Like keep the low weight, large hurt box, and poor disadvantage state. I like the idea behind this change, but I don't think it's super healthy. Basically what we're saying is you want him to be so polarized, it feels punishing to interact with him. And I think we kind of already see that in Smash Ultimate Luigi. We don't like this change as a community, so I'm not super on board with it, but I do like the creativity for it. Another change that was very popular, having a completely overhauled moveset. A lot of people are saying make Mewtwo more like Mewtwo from Pokken, which that would actually be very interesting. Like I said, I don't think that's going to happen. Smash seems very set in their ways, so I think a moveset overhaul is not going to happen, but that's not to say it's not warranted, right? Like Mewtwo as a special attacker in Pokemon and then using a majority of his attacks with his tail is kind of lame. So I totally hear you here. Increased grab range, that was also another popular one that I was seeing. Make him a little heavier, again another popular one. And then slightly less landing lag out of teleport would also be good. I think in some scenarios that can be very annoying to play against, but I mean a lot of characters are annoying to play against, so it's like it's fine. Mewtwo's down B transforms him into one of 3 characters. Rotation based like PT down B, Steve, Brawl Meta Knight, or Smash 4 Bayo. I love that change, that sounds amazing. I also saw people commenting about up smash and how that should scoop better and, you know, have a better hitbox. And so I definitely hear people on that as well. I don't have time to look through this whole thread, but it's a super cool concept. Glad you're making a video on it. Personally, I want very few changes. His advantage statement movement feels so satisfying. I just think they need to make him a glass cannon like Fox and Sheik instead of having the disadvantage state of DK. Smash 4 is too far the other direction, but something in the middle. Yep, I hear you, and also hope you're doing well, Mr. B. Awesome, that was a lot of fun. Definitely appreciate you guys reaching out. Definitely let me know still though in the comments below what kind of changes you want to see changed from Mewtwo. I'm definitely interested to hear and read more about it. That is it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.